Hello, friends, and welcome to your Daily Detroit, where we're sharing what to know and where to go in Southeast Michigan. It is a beautiful Friday, September 23rd, 2022. Fall is in the air, and from east of Woodward, I'm Jer Stays.
And from, what do we say, just west of Woodward, across from you, I'm Devon O'Reilly.
You're west of the table. You are west of
from
me.
West of the table. There we go.
It's good to see you, sir.
Good to see you, Jer. Good to talk to you. Good to be here. I mean, it couldn't have happened more accurately where first real day of fall, it is a fall day, a beautiful Michigan fall day.
Oh, and fall, spring, those are my favorite seasons. I mean, people may have strong disagreements with me on this, but those are the seasons where I feel the most comfortable. I actually like being outside in fall weather a lot more. I like a good little bonfire. Like, the four seasons is part of what makes Michigan so special.
Absolutely. And we have too short of a fall, I think. And so you got to take advantage of it. So hopefully people can get outside this weekend, enjoy the cool, crisp weather, and maybe have their drinks and food appropriately. I mean, fall flavors are the best. I mean, the food, the drinks, fall is definitely the time to be in Michigan.
And as you can see, I have some fall drinks with me.
You do, Jer. Now, what is that?
This is the apple cider bourbon cocktail, which basically I'm going to call it a fall old fashioned.
Okay.
Is what I'm going to call it.
I like that.
All right.
Very on brand.
So it's 1.5 ounces of bourbon whiskey, a 1/4 cup of apple cider, some orange bitters, a little bit of maple syrup, maybe like a teaspoon, depending on how you want to go with that. My pro tip would be to like warm it a little bit. Don't do maple syrup out of the fridge and try to do the legit stuff.
And it'll mix better that way.
It'll mix far better that way. Absolutely. The thinly sliced apple. And now some people do a cinnamon stick as garnish. I do a little bit of like cinnamon on the apple, like to give the apple some texture and fall flavor and whatever. You drop that in and you've basically got a fall old fashioned really focused on apple cider.
Very, very nice, Jared. That sounds like those flavors go together really well.
Well, that is part of the wonders of fall is like there's kind of a palate for you. What do you have, sir?
Well, Jared, I had some really good cocktails at one of my favorite places in Dearborn, actually, that we'll talk about. But this is a little bit of a, let's call it a south of the border type of fall drink called the Hawaiian Lava. This is at M Cantina. It's one of my favorite places. So it's fig-infused Buffalo Trace bourbon, vanilla-infused Grand Marnier, grilled grapefruit, Hawaiian salt, and a saffron rim.
Interesting.
Right?
Engineer Randy and I had a drink with Grand Marnier in it at the Stearns house last week. That was quite good.
It doesn't immediately, when you look at it, maybe it doesn't scream fall to you, but like the flavors, the warmth on it definitely gets you ready for fall.
And you say M Cantina is one of your favorite places. Why is that for M Cantina? Because I've sensed a lot of people have strong opinions about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really cool story. Junior Moreno and his wife, who are from or had lived in New York, and he was kind of a famous mixologist in his own right in New York City. And he moved a few years back to the Detroit area, set up shop in Dearborn, basically on Michigan Avenue across from the old City Hall, so near Michigan and Schaefer there. And they opened up a small kind of taco place. They didn't have a liquor license at first. They got that later. And they put together such an interesting menu of different tacos. We've had goat tacos, scallop tacos, duck tacos. We've had surf and turf tacos where he does filet and shrimp. It's just a real, just interesting mix of like those street taco styles. So you get 3 or 4 of them and you just kind of like order like small plates. You order, 3 or 4 different tacos, get a couple cocktails, which of course he does amazingly. And it's a great little date spot.
Now, is it fusion or is it tacos with a twist? Like, is it a full fusion experience or what do you think?
No, I think more tacos with a twist. The kind of impetus behind it is really kind of authentic, south of the border Mexican cuisine, but it is done in a way that is true to form, but also very cuisine-y and very kind of like trendy with interesting flavors and a little bit of a take on classics.
So where about in Dearborn is that?
Just east of Schaefer on Michigan Avenue, a little bit across from the old City Hall there. It's kind of tucked in there. You really have to look for it, but they got a nice sign out there, M Cantina. It's a wonderful little place. Make reservations because it fills up fast, but it's really great for a date spot.
I've got some taco news for you.
Do you?
Yes.
Okay.
I learned through Eater Detroit that Taqueria El Rey is reopening.
That is amazing. I think us and our listeners have been waiting for that for quite a while.
Yeah, they had a GoFundMe. The fire happened early part of this year, burned out the building in Southwest Detroit and West Verner. GoFundMe raised more than $33,000 to rebuild, and now we have some more knowledge. So one, they will be continuing their service 2 days a week at Batch Brewing. So if you want to get your Tuesday taco fix, and I believe also on Mondays, you can go to Corktown, do the Batch Brewing thing. That's great. Now, We don't have a timeline on this, but apparently they're moving to Lincoln Park.
Interesting, but not surprising given what I know about that area. There's a lot of the Hispanic population from Southwest traditionally seems to be heading towards Lincoln Park, Allen Park, that area. So I think that makes perfect sense for them.
Yeah, and you can even see like the change in the businesses, more additions of Spanish language things. Like there's starting to be a true migration from Southwest Detroit into downriver. Now there's a lot of implications for that. Maybe that's for a different show and a different expert, but it is interesting to see. It's also something where I think it's good to open up your palate if you're into tacos into different locations. Not that I'm against Southwest Detroit. We talked about Southwest Detroit Restaurant Week on the show this week. But listener Tom told me that the taco stand has 4 locations from Allen Park running down to Riverview. And they're really good. They do the authentic street tacos.
Mm-hmm.
The people who own it are from the Jalisco. So it's that style, because if you're unfamiliar, depending on where you are in Mexico, like it's going to taste different. It's going to have different accoutrements. So that's where that's from. And they also have a very tasty, and I've had it a few times, their taco stand burrito. And so it's a very pared down menu. It is literally a taco stand. Like you go up, you get your stuff, and you go. I think there's maybe 10 things on the menu, but I think I really like that because it's grab and go and it's quick and it's everything that I know tacos to be, as opposed to digging through like a 4-page fold out menu. It's like, get your Doritos, get your burrito, go. And I'm all about that.
I love that too. I love exploring the menus at places like that. Even when they're simple, there's always interesting stuff there. A lot of them have like the lingua, the beef tongue, which is actually really good and tender. So yeah, tacos, they might be the greatest food ever invented, Jer, honestly, because you can do so much with them.
As I said on Twitter, I was all for a taco stand or a taco truck on every corner.
Hey, absolutely. Let's try and make that happen.
Now, there isn't a ton to say about this because it hasn't changed hands, but Rose's Fine Food and Wine, it really started out as a restaurant. Now it's kind of more of like a market restaurant kind of situation. Anyway, it is a place that gained a lot of attention a few years ago, opening up on the east side on Jefferson Avenue in an old diner spot. Well, it is for sale by O'Connor Real Estate. And it's interesting to me to see $600,000 for everything to buy it. If you're interested, they have an outdoor patio space. I think they've done a great job with the building. It's beautiful. I remember when it used to be Elmo's Diner years ago when I was a kid, like, because my grandmother was over in Indian Village. Like, I would go by this place, and they've just really spruced the place up a ton. Apparently, and this is according to multiple media outlets, the owner couldn't be reached for comment. But, I think this is another sign, and this is just my gut speaking, a long time, like years is a long time for a restaurant, and it's hard to run a restaurant. So I don't really blame people for looking to change the reins on that.
Yeah. And sometimes, especially, I think people in other cities are used to this because there's a lot more churn and they're used to it. But like, it's one of those things where we do have to kind of think about, this is the way of the world. You don't run restaurants forever. Not every restaurant is meant to last for decades. And that's okay. It's not like we have to, sit here and critique this and say, oh God, what went wrong? What did they do wrong? It's like, no, maybe the time came and went. And
8 years is a long run for a restaurant. I mean, we've all watched Bar Rescue. Like, how long do these things like normally last?
Right. I mean, they certainly outlasted what would be the normal run for a restaurant, and they were really popular for a time. I do remember like Rose's was like a thing where if you tried to just show up there on any given day to eat, it would be a line. You'd be waiting. So this was definitely known for really, really good, made from scratch food. I do also recall, Jer, they made some positive headlines for paying their workers a fair wage even before this recent
the
discussion about
$15 an hour, they were ahead of the curve.
Yeah, they were doing that years ago. Obviously overhead is a thing. When you make food from scratch and you're paying your workers a fair wage, that becomes tough. Not saying that's why, but they did a really good job. They had a great run, and you hope that the people behind this will turn to something else. And, it seems like they've done this well. They'll do whatever they put their effort into next well as well.
Now, in downtown Detroit, the 21-story Huntington Tower has opened. That was part of that big bank merger, right? I believe it was with TCF. That's why we don't have the TCF Center now. We're going to have Huntington Place. This building is 427,000 square feet. It's all glass clad. It's right there over by the State Theater, right across from Comerica Park, where you're seeing a lot of stuff. You see the new Little Caesars headquarters right there, like kind of headquarters row, if you will,
right
on Woodward. There isn't a ton to talk about this. It's got mixed parking in it. It's got a lot of room for employees, which I'm not sure how many are going to be in the office nowadays with the whole world. But it is notable, and it is notable to see this go over the line. And when you walk down Woodward, you can see the Huntington logo in the distance, even just north of Campus Martius.
Yeah, I think what's notable of this is first what you said. It's a marketing tool for Huntington. They now have a very visible logo on the Detroit skyline. That building is very visible looking down Woodward. They'll be in all sorts of backgrounds of pictures and shots, whether at the Monarch Club or the DAC or what have you. But I do think that it's also notable to look at what you just said, the future of office. And, Huntington clearly built this space that's really cool. It's across from Comerica, but right near all the stadiums in the heart of the entertainment district. It has a really cool rooftop. I know I haven't been up there yet, but it's got a really cool rooftop and entertainment space. And, you wonder, of course, if you're going to build these things now, if you're thinking from a top level perspective, you want to build the type of place that employees want to come to. So it's not only we'll give you the option to work in this headquarters, you want to come there because it's fun to be there and it's cool to be in the city. So I think that's what was in Huntington's mind when they were kind of putting the finishing touches on it, because that's the world we live in now.
Yeah. The views are going to be amazing. I visited the Little Caesars headquarters while it was under construction, and I got to hang out on some of the upper floors. Stunning views of the city, without a doubt. All right, let's pay some bills with a quick word from a friend of the podcast.
As we all live longer, age really is just a number. But retirement is so much more than one. Your Metro Detroit Edward Jones financial advisors want to know what you want out of your retirement, so we can help get you there. Call us toll-free at 866-975-8655 to schedule an appointment. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
All right, Urbanize Detroit reports that there is a new apartment building going into Southwest Detroit just behind the Ford, Michigan Central Station project. The Brooke on Bagley. It broke ground. It will have 78 apartments and some ground floor retail. $23 million project. A number of them as affordable. So I think 16 out of the 78. You can, of course, read more. We'll put more in the show notes. What do you think of this project, Devon?
I mean, I think it's definitely a worthy development. I think the goals are kind of the times. They're trying to create affordable housing, but cool and, good quality affordable housing in this area. And I think it also serves to do something that I think we're going to talk a lot more about, and that's connecting these neighborhoods of Corktown, what we call Corktown and Hubbard Farms, to Southwest Detroit, because they're two very different neighborhoods in terms of what people perceive them as, culturally, historically, certainly, but they share so much in terms of distance. I mean, you can walk to them, you could bike to them, and they're kind of broken up by the freeway a little bit, but I think it's going to serve to help connect. And I think there is a goal from the city and from Ford to better connect these communities of Southwest Detroit and the Corktown communities together better, because it's almost like together they could be this super neighborhood of just incredible diversity and economic development.
Looking in my inbox for the press materials, it is the first to use something called the Ibiara Fund, which was announced over the summer to support Black developers in Detroit, they report over at Urbanize. And the developers are the same Woodbourne partners who did projects including the Co in West Village and Scott and Brush Park. So this definitely has, and you can see by the renderings, a much more modern look, and I'll link to that so you can take a look at it.
Jerry, remember when you went to Tennessee and you talked about Dolly Parton's Imagination Library, how cool of a program it was, how the cities and suburbs around here should sign up for it?
I do. I remember. I also remember that cabin well and connecting to you through my cell phone to make that happen.
We made it work anywhere.
Yes,
Anywhere. But no, I think it's important to bring up, well, maybe, for me especially, my fine city of Dearborn is now signed up for the Imagination Library. So through a $2.8 million endowment secured by the current mayor, Abdullah Hammoud, when he was a state rep, it's going to be run by the Amity Foundation. And what this means, not only does Dolly Parton, get to be connected with Dearborn, which is great. Anything Dolly Parton does is amazing. But in the first day, 1,000 children signed up.
That's impressive.
And one of those children was my baby. So my wife signed our baby, who's only 2.5 months old at this point, signed up for it, got right on it, and she's going to get a book a month until she's 5 years old.
I think that's important to mention that it isn't just for low-income people.
No, it's for anybody who wants to be a part of this, who finds literacy and reading an important thing to instill in their child. Anyone can be a part of this.
Well, I'm happy to hear about it. I've shared a link before. imaginationlibrary.com. You put in your zip code. Of course, I want to see this in the city of Detroit. I'd like to see this in more places, but I am happy for Dearborn. This is great news. I mean, Dearborn is not a small community at this point. It's 100,000 or so people on board with this library, which is exciting.
Oh, Dolly's going to be giving away a lot of books to kids, and they will all go, I'm sure, to good use and, increasing those literacy rates. And more cities should do this. If you hear this and you're in a city, you're in a town, encourage your public officials to get involved with the Imagination Library.
I wonder if it's big enough of a deal that we can get Dolly on the podcast. Wouldn't that be amazing?
That would be something, Jer. I don't even want to dream of that, but that would be awesome.
All right, before we let you go, a couple of things this weekend. Of course, the auto show continues. If you have not seen the duck, I have not made it down to see the duck. Friends tell me that the duck is deflated during inclement weather. So if there's a storm, you may not get full duck action.
Well, I can't help but see the duck from my office window these days. It's constantly out there, but there was actually a monster truck rally the past 2 days outside my office window. So that is what part of the experience of the auto show, I guess, now is it's all around downtown.
Right, and there's a couple of concerts going on, which is pretty cool. I haven't been. I'm looking forward to seeing it for myself. There's been a lot of talk about it. I don't want to give an opinion. I've got a lot of emails from people. I don't want to give an opinion until I've gone.
Well, I'm looking forward to that opinion.
Also, the DIY Fest is in Ferndale this weekend, which is a great group of makers. And one of the things I like about DIY Fest is that, there's so many different art events or whatever where you kind of have the same vendors over and over again. DIY seems to bring out the best of the best, along with musical acts and all that kind of stuff. It's just a great deal. I do plan on going. And then I would be remiss if I didn't mention that next week is the Harvest Fest and Food Truck Rally in the DeQuinder Cut, October 1st and 2nd. More than 50 food trucks, 6 stages, and of course, Devon, for folks like you or people like me who try to be the cool uncle, a ton of family-friendly activities. Great way to go see the DeQuinder Cut and see it activated. When I went out there for Easter Market After Dark, the freight yard had DJs in it and whatever. And I've also seen the freight yard do other things. And I'd love to see that kind of energy out there. And of course, if you've got something you want to tell us about, don't forget dailydetroit@gmail.com. Or if you've got feedback in general for the show, we're always up for it.
Yeah, Jared, let us know what's going on. I mean, we can only cover so much ground. We rely on our listeners to give us tips and let us know what we should be talking about because you all are out there too, just like us.
That's how we found the Mid-8 Sandwich Shop, among other things. All right, with that, I'm Jer Stays.
And I'm Devon O'Reilly.
Thank you so much for listening. Thank you to our team behind the scenes, Fletcher Sharp, Cheyenne Serini, Randy Walker, Luciano Marcone, and of course, Studio Dog Gabrielle for all of their help. Remember that you are somebody, and we'll see you around Detroit.